Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on a Saturday morning. We're going to make it well worth your while, okay? We've already started by providing donuts and coffee, all the sugar, caffeine, all those kinds of things that you'll need to stay with us. So I'm Dillan Siegler, and I'm the Director of Partnerships and Engagement at the Institute of Politics. And I'm really excited to be presenting this workshop, which is launching our Professional Skills program with Novia Pagone, who's here, and she's the Program Director for UChicago Careers in Public and Social Service. And so both of us play a key role here on campus in making sure that you guys are prepared for careers in public service, you're aware of them, you know how to find them, you know what's a good fit, and then you know how to really submit successful applications so that you guys are the ones selected for those opportunities. This is a pilot, so this is the first time we've launched the Professional Skills program. This is the first workshop of the Professional Skills program. So we're open to your feedback, we're open to your comments. At the end of this, we're gonna do a poll everywhere just to get your assessments right away, so you're not gonna have to fill out a survey after or anything. But so please let us know. We're looking for what could make this stronger, what things worked well, what was impactful, those kinds of things. And so we ask you to bear with us if there are things that you're like, you spent way too much time on that, or gosh, I would have loved to have known more about whatever it is, So we're really hoping that you guys can work with us to make this really strong. So let me just start by telling you about the Professional Skills program. The Institute of Politics is launching this year with this workshop. And the idea is this: you guys are incredibly smart, talented, you have so many skills already, you're working so hard in your classes. And the idea is that out in the world, there are all of these key skills that can really help you be effective in your RSOs, internships, jobs in the future. And we thought, at the Institute of Politics, as well as here on campus, we have a lot of talent, people who have experience in these skills and can really make sure that you guys understand, great, how do I translate my education into a job out in the real world, into an internship that's meaningful for me, as well as over the summer, how can I make the most of this internship and go in with some hard skills that are really useful. So that's the idea behind the Professional Skills program. We did kind of a survey on campus of what currently exists, and we really think that this is bringing a value add to campus. And so again, we'd love to make sure that you agree with that and that you feel like as you come to these skills workshops, you're really getting something out of them. Really quickly, because you've probably seen some things about them, what we're doing is we're offering 5, okay? We're offering 5 professional skills workshops, and we'd love for all of you to attend all 5 of those. We understand sometimes that's not possible. We're going to try to record all of them such that if you're out of town, if you have to miss one of them, that sort of thing, it'll be up on the YouTube site, the IOP's YouTube site, and would be something that you could watch and then complete a Google form to let us know that you had watched it and to provide a little bit of an assessment of the workshop that you watched via video. Again, we'd love to have you in person, so that's our goal. And then finally, in May, we're excited that if you attend all 5, or if you miss one and you watch it online, that can count as attending. You can apply for a public service scholarship, and all we're gonna do with that is we're gonna say, look, what does public service mean to you? And we're going to ask you to give us, a reflection on that, write an essay, and then we'll pick 3 people to get $1,500 public service scholarships. There are only 2 requirements to apply for the scholarship: attend all 5 workshops and write this essay by the deadline. And the deadline will be in mid-May. And then this scholarship, $1,500, you can use for whatever you want. Okay, there's no restrictions. It'll be a check cut to you. All right, so we're pretty excited about that. Any questions about the Professional Skills program before we get going into what we're doing today? No. Okay, great. So what we're talking about today, we're talking about careers in public service. And Novia and I, we work closely together, we work well together, and we both approach this in the same way, which is, how can we provide you with information and career search skills, career application skills that are impactful and that really help make a difference in terms of the materials you're submitting, the jobs you're finding. We want to help you understand what are your interests. We don't want somebody who wants to be out there on the front lines behind a desk doing policy research because you're going to be bored. You're not going to be satisfied with your work. We want to help you think about what's the landscape of public service careers, what does that even mean, and how can we make sure that you identify what's a good fit for you, and then how do you go out and find that job or find that internship or find that volunteer opportunity. And so so again, the goal here is really to be just to provide you with that information that can help make the difference between, maybe I'll apply for these internships, and I'll tell you, we got a lot of applications for the last round of Institute of Politics internships, right? It's upwards of 80 for some of them. So we want to give you guys the information so that your materials stand out, so that your materials are the ones the employer's reading and saying, oh, this person's a really good fit for this opportunity, So we really want to, that's what we're trying to do here. Why is this important? Here's the thing. You're probably going to hear me talk a lot about impact, because the last thing I want is for you to sit here for we'll try to get you out a little early, 2.5 hours, and leave and be like, wow, that was such a waste of my time, or like, oh my God, I'm so bored. Novia and I have been in the working world a while, and what I can guarantee you is that people who understand the career process and who really can both see the big picture, like, why is it important that I kind of understand how to look for careers, how to find opportunities that are a good fit with me, as well as then how to, actually make the employer know that I'm the one who they should select. For the people who understand that, it really makes the difference between, you have a great education, you have a lot of skills, you have a lot of interest and passion. It makes a difference between that kind of person and the one who can really get the job of their dreams, And I tell you right now, I have the job of my dreams. I mean, literally, like I thought it was when I was running UCIPS, and that was an incredible job, but it's even better. And, so we want you to understand that. I mean, here's the thing. I literally probably 3 times a week, I get requests from external people in the world, from various walks of life, friends, girlfriends, boyfriends, blah-de-da, help me with my resume, this, that, and the other, And the truth is, because this is important stuff that if you are somebody who knows how to do this in the world, it's going to make a huge difference. Novia and I run, I ran the UCIPS program, UChicago Careers in Public and Social Service. Novia now runs it. And we both have a lot of stories of, there are alumni out in the world who went through our skills program and who met with us regularly and that sort of thing. They contact me all the time and they say, Dillan, these skills are so important. They'll say, I interviewed people, and it was horrible. I couldn't believe what they were presenting on the other side of the table, The skills that you gave us have really helped us connect with incredible opportunities, and we hear that all the time. I have 2 former UCIP scholars, UCIP students who work for me directly, and both of them approach the jobs in exactly the same way. They came to me and they said, how can I be useful? I'd love to volunteer at the IOP. How can I help you with things? And they weren't just self-interested. They weren't just all about them. They said, how can I be useful at the IOP? And it turned out that there was a good fit, and we started to have a conversation about the kinds of skills that they could bring to the table. And it ended up that both of them are now employed. One's my assistant director, and one's our alumni engagement and communications coordinator. And then, success stories. I was just mentioning to Novia, and she has these examples too. When at the very first quarter that we offered UCIPS, I said to a student, write this beautiful kind of introductory email and blind email 15 people in DC who you'd like to meet with in the next couple weeks when she was going to be there. She sent these 15 blind emails off. We worked on the email. It was really well crafted. These people didn't know her, okay? She sent the email, I'm going to be in DC. Here's what I'd love to talk about. Here's a little bit about me. She was able to set up 9 in-person meetings in DC, had those meetings within a month. 2 of those places, because they knew her and had met her then, sent her job opportunities, said, we'd love for you to apply. This is a perfect opening. She was graduating in March. She applied to both those jobs. She followed through the process, and she ended up getting both those offers and selected one of them. These were from blind emails. This person, January 31st, 2011, these organizations had never ever heard of her. They had no idea who she was. And within 3 months, right when she was graduating, she had 2 job offers from them. So the point is, this stuff works, right? That's what we really want you guys to understand. Any questions before we go on to the next slide? Okay, great. And as you can tell, I'm really excited about all this stuff. Okay. All right, so these are a couple sayings. I'm not being all new agey or cheesy, but these are, things that, I know I'm walking back in, sorry. We're videotaping this as well. These are things that I think can be really impactful. So here's the key. You don't have to worry like, am I going to find that great job, that perfect job right out of college? Am I going to end up doing something that I really enjoy? The truth is, probably not exactly right away in your most ideal job. The hope is that, 60 to 70% of the things you're doing you're really excited about. But one of the keys is surround yourself with people who can help you grow, help you grow, whatever that looks like for you, if it's professionally, if it's personally, and that's absolutely key. Just so you know, we're going to send you this PowerPoint after this workshop, okay? So as long as you checked in and we have your name, we're going to send you this PowerPoint, so we want to make sure you can have these things in writing. I think that no matter what, as long as you're out in the world and you're proud of the work you're doing, and you're proud of who you are and you're proud of the difference that you're making, I think that that's key, right? So you could be at an organization that's really small, it's 3 of you, as long as you're feeling good about that kind of work, like that, these are the kinds of things that are the broad overarching goals. This next one that Bill Cosby said, I really love. Decide that you want it more than you are afraid of it. And here's the important thing to understand. Every single person in this room, Novia, myself, all of us, when we're looking for jobs, when we're trying to think about our next step, we're all afraid of it. We all have fear around that, so you're not alone at all. And in other words, but the key is like, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to go meet with Novia and her team and talk to her about the kinds of things that you're interested in and how you can find those jobs and internships that are exciting for you and how you can be the one who employers, contact and want to interview and that sort of thing? Or are you going to kind of be afraid and not necessarily take the kind of action that you should, So we just want to encourage you, like, step out of your comfort zone, be ready. If interviews are terrifying to you, they are to me, even though I'm like a huge extrovert, I hate them still. Just practice, and Novia and myself, we're here to make sure that you guys feel comfortable with all parts of this process. And then this is the key, especially for you guys, okay? Like, you may have your vision, know exactly what it is you want to do, where you're going to be. Okay, I'm going to get out, I'm going to work for 2 years doing some policy analysis, I'm going to go get a master's in public policy, then I'm going to go run for office, and then blah-de-da-de-da. Key is, you know what? It's not going to happen like you think it is. It's not going to happen like you think it is, but it's frankly going to be better because it's going to be exactly the way it's supposed to be, and you're not going to be able to plan out all the pieces. You can take these actions now, and frankly, I guarantee you, if you do some of the things we're going to talk about, where you're learning about different sectors, you're learning about different roles, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, like direct service I always heard, and I thought that might be really difficult. This is something that I think I'd be really good at. This is something that I think I'd really enjoy doing, And so we definitely want to encourage you to make sure that you're exploring all avenues, right? And that you're not afraid and you're going out there and you're using us in the University of Chicago because there are amazing resources here. You guys are so, so lucky. I mean, the Metcalf program is going to have close to 1,000 paid internships this summer, and 200 of those will be via the Institute of Politics. And no university comes even close to that across the country. I just want you guys to know that. So it's really, really awesome. All right, next slide. Great. So here's what we're going to talk about. If you can believe, that was all an intro, right? So nice long intro. Well, just real quick, what we're gonna go through is we're going to talk about kind of the bones of an effective search, okay, and really what makes a search effective and kind of the big picture. So, it's not just, oh, great, let me work on my resume, let me work on my cover letter, but bigger picture, how can you kind of enter into a search with the expectations around the different pieces you need to put together and making sure that your application materials are strong, you're following through, those kinds of things. We're going to talk specifically about finding opportunities and connecting with people. Novia is going to talk to you about that. We're then going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the application material piece. So we're going to talk directly, and we have some fun examples, some resumes with a lot of errors that we want to make sure that you guys can identify. And then we'll wrap out by saying, great, if you want to engage more with the UChicago Careers in Public and Social Service program or with the IOP, here are a couple of ways that you can do that. So that's the agenda for today. Great. All right, so this is the first key piece. How to approach an internship job search. The key is that, it's not, first of all, it's something that it's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing process. This isn't something where you come to campus your second year, maybe in January, you kind of start to look for an internship, you submit some applications, that sort of thing. We really want to help you think holistically about the job search and the role that it can play in your time here at the University of Chicago, as well as how it can connect with all of the other things that you're doing, okay? The RSOs you're involved with, your work on the Maroon, the athletics you do, the things that you enjoy doing in the community, the things you like doing over the summer, even if you go home over the summer and you volunteer, that sort of thing. Your summer experiences, your study abroad. All of these things are part of this package, which is you. And what we're doing is we're helping you understand how can you really, take the time to understand the kinds of things you like, the kinds of things you really don't like to do. Because I guarantee you those for Novia and I are really different, but yet we've had this same role. She's the program director now. I used to be the program director, but we have a lot of things in our career path that I really enjoyed doing that I'm sure she hated, and vice versa, you know? And so, you know, it's really all about what is it that is exciting for you, and how do you then find those opportunities and connect with them and convince employers to that you're the right person for them. Here's a little bit of a you know, of a diagram that I really like to use in thinking about this, because it's not just about what are some organizations you'd like to work for. I'd love to work for Human Rights Watch or something like that, you know? Well, I guarantee you in the organization space, there are so many other kinds of organizations doing human rights and civil rights work. Human Rights Watch, an incredible organization, but I happen to know for some of their entry-level kind of research assistant positions, they get 500, 1,000 applications, you know? So I don't want you to have one dream job in your mind. I want you to know about the real space of organizations that would be exciting and interesting to you. And again, Novia and I are going to talk to you about how you can find organizations like that. The key that I want you to look at here, you know, and Chinab and I don't necessarily like these smart art diagrams because sometimes they're really annoying to play with. But anyway, I want you to know that these arrows go both ways, and that's intentional, okay? Because a job search and the pieces that may make the magic that results in your ideal job, your ideal internship, may start anywhere along this continuum. It may be you're at an event for the, you know, Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. We're going to go to a really cool event. We're going to take students on February 22nd, I believe, is their big conference. You may be there. You may have a conversation with somebody about the kinds of things that are super important to you, and you may not in your mind at all be thinking about, oh, maybe I could get a job with this person. But that's a contact. That's someone you stay in contact with. That's someone you reach back out to when you're closer to graduating, you know, maybe in a year or something like that, and you say, hey, I'd love to come talk to you about your career. And it could be that that's the person who ends up hiring you. So you can start anywhere along here with contacts. Contacts, you can think broadly about those people that you meet along the way. Professors, you know, people like Novia and I, we have a lot of contacts. Oh, you know, I would love to reach out and connect with somebody in the Attorney General's office. Well, interestingly enough, Novia used to work there, right? In other words, you guys thinking about the kinds of people who you'd like to connect with, as well as when you're out in the world. You know, I'm not saying like look at people and be like, how can I use you in the future? But, you know, just definitely always, you know, if people offer you a business card, keep those. Novia is going to give you some really good suggestions for how you can track this kinds of information so that it's not like, wow, God, I met that person and I would love to work at that organization. Where was it? What was it? You know, one simple suggestion is whenever you meet somebody and they give you a business card, flip it over, write the date that you met them, and like just a little note for yourself, right, about the context. Oh, we were at the blah-de-da event, you know, seriously, that'll be invaluable. And so contacts can happen anywhere along the spectrum. Similarly, organizations, you know, Novia's UCIPS as well as the IOP, we go on a lot of treks out into the community here in Chicago, as well as down to Springfield and to DC, and Novia's going to New York, and they're doing a local government trek. So you could be like, I don't even really know, what does that mean to work in municipal government? You know what? Go on this trek with Novia, and you can learn about, you might be like, wow, I could really see myself fitting into an organization like that. So keep your mind really open about the different kinds of organizations out there. And then opportunities, what I mean by that is actual opportunities. So it's these three components. Chinab, this guy, I don't know what exactly did. Okay, I think it's fine. These three components are the key components where you could start anywhere on the wheel and they lead you to the next one, you know? So I connect with somebody who I think is great. I say, oh, I'd love to touch base with somebody at your organization. Maybe we'll develop an internship for you Chicago students, and then we develop an internship and we have an actual opportunity, and that's the way that the wheel works, okay? So does this make sense to me? I like this image because anywhere you are in the world, you can fit something into one of these kinds of things. Opportunities, think about it broadly. It could be a paid job, a paid internship, it could be a volunteer internship, where then you say, oh, the IOP has this new stipend program that they're launching. Novia has a UCIPS apprenticeship program. Those are places where you can find funding for opportunities that are voluntary, that fit within the spectrum of, you know, our programs. So any questions about any of this? I think your next slide, is that right? Oh, no, I'm next, okay. And then I promise, I will stop talking and you will hear Novia. So I know you're gonna get bored of my voice. So this, I want to say from the get-go, this is very much an example. These are examples up here, okay? That's why, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, okay? It says that on the slide intentionally because public service is public and social service, a big broad spectrum of opportunities, of different career possibilities, of different ways that you can make an impact, okay? So just because you don't see it up here doesn't mean it doesn't count. But what I want you to understand are kind of the different types of ways that you can do a search to try to find where do I fit in, or which 15 places do I fit in, which 5 different roles would I like to do. So sectors within public service, here are a few examples, okay? And so you guys can read those there, but we're talking, it could be a government agency, that could be federal, state, city, county government. Those are all government agencies. There are so many, it would blow your mind. Elected official, what? Townships. I mean, seriously, we found this Excel actually on Tony Preckwinkle's on their website of all of the different units of government in Illinois. I mean, literally this thing it's the most insane spread. It's totally overwhelming because we were thinking, let's get internships at all of those. And it was like, wow. It'd be like,
units of government than most states.
Yes.
And we could use to be streamlined. You guys should do that.
Yeah, no, and it's true. They have some Harris professors kind of working on looking at what are all these units, because you know what they found actually? This was fascinating. They went to one area kind of up in one of the northern suburbs, and they found that this person, where he lived, literally, was represented by 80 different units of government, okay? This one person, because of all the different things that, his region related to. I mean, that's terrifying. Okay, so, then there can be elected political officials' offices, legislative offices. Nonprofits, advocacy organizations are a huge bucket here. And then within that, there are, of course, 9 million different ways that you can be effective at an advocacy or a nonprofit organization. And then there's a lot of these, I don't want to say, well, think tanks are another, key space that you guys are pretty well aware of, but then there are a lot more of these kind of communications, media firms coming up, political consulting, nonprofit consulting organizations. And so those are cool places where, and there's lots of different definitions of them. So there's nonprofit consulting where the consulting firm is a nonprofit. There's nonprofit consulting where the consulting firm itself is an actual for-profit entity that consults out to nonprofit organizations, okay? So there's many different ways to kind of define these sectors. Issue areas, all that means is really kind of, here's the key with kind of issue areas, roles, that sort of thing. You may not have an issue area that you're particularly passionate about, and that's fine. You may say, I'm a communications person who wants to be impactful in the public service sector, and I don't care what I work on. I just really want to be at a place where I'm doing these kinds of tasks, where I'm doing marketing, where I'm helping them, prepare outreach materials, where I'm, doing the piece about, speaking on behalf of the organization. And so the communications, the role may be what's more important to you. Similarly, you may be somebody for whom, healthcare, legal services, legal rights, that's the thing that is super important to you, and that's absolutely wonderful. And then there's a huge spectrum of places where you can do that kind of work. You can do that work at, a public defender office as an investigator. You can do that work, as a legal assistant, as a paralegal. I mean, there's so many different spaces. And it may be that, right now, I hope, frankly, a lot of you guys are really open to a bunch of these, right? So maybe one of your internships last summer said, oh God, I'll frankly tell you, communications, not my thing. We just hired a new director of communications, and I was like, I can build any program you want, I can develop it, I can run it, whatever. I don't really know, I don't understand the kind of telling the story piece. Matt, who we just hired, I said, I need your help, help us think about how do we tell the story of all the things that we're doing, I know, I have strengths and I have, things to work on, or frankly, things that I want other people to do, right? And similarly, I did direct service at community-based organizations, and that was really hard. I did it for 2.5 years on the front lines, and it was really intense. I'm not trained as a social worker. I was wearing that kind of a hat a lot of the time, and I got to say, you know what, for me, I prefer a little bit off the front lines. I prefer building programs and developing them and having other people who are, doing the frontline service, and that's okay. Those are the kinds of things that I want you guys to learn in your experiences, in your RSOs, academic year internships, summer internships, your first full-time job, that kind of thing. Chinab is here with us, and she's our student civic engagement coordinator. This is Chinab, and she is through an organization called New Sector Alliance. She has one of their AmeriCorps fellowships, and we're the host site for those. And so I know that this year, this is her first job. She graduated from UChicago in 2013, and she's probably learned a huge spectrum of things about the kinds of stuff she really likes to do, and the kinds of things she's like, I'm gonna do this because Dillan's telling me to, but I really wish I didn't have to. You know, and those are the kinds of things that are super important. So really keeping all these pieces in mind, the different sectors, the different issue areas, as well as the different kinds of roles within public service, you know? And if you think to yourself, well, I do this and I don't see it up there, great, perfect. First of all, we'd love for you to give us that feedback, but second of all, you know, there's way, way more than we have captured up here. So I'm now going to turn it over to Novia, who is going to talk to you about where you find these opportunities.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about finding opportunities. And the best place to start is probably with the major sites, right? Here you have a list. There's a much longer list on the next slide, which we'll get to in a second. If you go on to the UCIP's website on career advancement, we have the complete list. A few of these, like the Tom Minato's job list, require a password, which we subscribe, and so the password's there. You can get it, no problem. If it's not there, just email me. I'll give it to you. So just to go down, Chicago Career Connection, I hope everybody here is familiar with Chicago Career Connection, commonly known as CCC. Idealist, I'm guessing, is kind of the first place that people look after CCC for these kinds of positions. It is sort of the Bible of the nonprofit world for this kind of work, for this kind of search. They have domestic and international, volunteer and compensated. There's great search features, so it helps you navigate and kind of narrow down your search. You can also just search for organizations there to see what kind of organizations you might be interested in if you're still in the kind of career exploration phase. MPO.net is a sort of Chicago-based version of Idealist, so it's just Chicago-based and nonprofits. Indeed will give you an idea of what's coming from other job boards, so they kind of pull in. So each of these kind of has their own sort of specialty, right? But most of them do a good job. It's a very good idea to search multiple engines so that you are making sure to get kind of everything. One good example is at Taking the Next Step just a couple weeks ago. One of our alumni who was there, Sarah Mauskowitz, she works for Citizens Utility Board, which is a really great nonprofit organization that's kind of a helping government from the outside organization that helps with utility rates and making sure everything is fair. That's a very basic description of what they do. But she was telling me that they're going to actually they're posting 2 full-time positions, like probably as we speak, but they only post on MPO.net. That's the only place they post. So if one of these is not pulling in from MPO.net, or you don't look on MPO.net, and you don't know about the Citizens Utility Board, you will never find that position. And it might be something that you're interested in, their outreach position, so it's going out to the community, talking to people about utility rates and all of that. We're working on getting it on the CCC also. The Tom Minato's job list, political jobs in DC, but all in New York, Chicago, also kind of all over. But it's the place to go if you're looking for a job with a congressman or congresswoman or something like that, because those are not commonly posted on like Idealist and these other ones. Okay. Like I said, our website has additional resources. And then you can always come and meet with the UCIP's advisor. There are 3 of us. Myself, Pat Rosenzweig, who's amazing, and Craig Denial, who also is amazing and also runs the UC PIP program, the public interest program.
For graduating 4th year.
Yeah, for graduating 4th years. So if you could just go to the next slide. I'm not going to talk much more on this, but as you can see, lots and lots of options. So we'll be sending this to you guys, and, as you know, and you have these passwords there for the ones that require it. Okay. Okay, so let's say you start your research and you find 10 jobs that you think are super cool and you would love to apply, right? Metcalf internships, like every one of those internships is something that I would do, I think, or would have wanted to do when I was an undergrad, okay? One way to keep track of all these awesome opportunities that you have is to make a tracking sheet, okay? There's one here. When you get this in your email, you'll be able to kind of blow this up. You can see it a little bit bigger. But basically, you just want to have the organization name, your interest level. If want to get real elaborate, or you can just slap up all the information on an Excel sheet just so you have it there somewhere. Okay, you don't have to be hyper organized like this if you don't have time for it or you're not that person. You can also add it to favorites on CCC. I ask students that all the time when they come and see me. We're looking at jobs and they say, oh, is it in your favorites? Because that allows me to just click on it and see all the things that you're interested in. It also allows you to keep track of what you were interested in. So when you're looking through the long Metcalf list and there's, you're like, ooh, look at this, Pike Place, Department of Education, like all these different places. You can just add them to your favorites so that you can go back later. Because sometimes CCC doesn't find the same thing twice. So you want to
Magic of CCC.
Exactly. You want to get it. You want to capture it when you find it. Okay. You can also create a special bookmarks folder in the bookmarks bar. Obviously, I use Chrome, so I can't speak about the other browsers. But in Chrome, you can have a folder in your bookmarks bar, and then just save it in there so that if you find a website that you found and you're really interested in that place, even if you're like, ooh, I'm a second year, but this would be really cool for a full-time job when I'm a fourth year, put it in there. You'll go back and look and you might still be interested, or you maybe have moved on to something else. You can also just create a notes document, using Microsoft Word or Pages, or I use Evernote. I'm a super fan, like evangelistic about Evernote. I use it on my iPad and keep all notes there. It's a great way to do that. Okay, so connecting with people. I will confess, a super introvert. Okay, teaching and working in politics and having to call volunteers to ask them to do things for me taught me to but work around my introvert tendencies, right? So that is why I'm able to stand here and talk, and I could probably talk on and on for a long time if I had to. So connecting with people is not natural, right? It's not the thing that I'm like, ooh, yes, I want to go and talk to people, right? New people that I don't know. I like talking to people that I already know. But I'm not an extrovert, so I don't gain energy from talking to new people.
I'm an extrovert. Shocker.
Right. So it's very surprising, I know. So when I go to a mingling party, like taking the next step or something like that, it's not a party, but when I go to something like taking the next step, I have to have a strategy, because I am not going to walk into taking the next step and go, yes, look at all these people. I want to talk to them all. I go, oh my God, look at all these people. I think I'm going to go home now, right? So we're going to talk about just some strategies for you guys. The basics of connecting with people are have an elevator speech, practice it, be able to do it 30 to 60 seconds, okay? This is not your life story. It's just who you are, what you're up to, what you're interested in, and where you want to go. Identifying people in organizations, so similar to the sort of search engines, you can use that to identify organizations, and we'll talk a little bit about identifying people. And then connecting with the people, so sending that email, making that ask, right? Even if you've never seen them ever before in your life, you have no connection to them, you don't know them, you're like the student that Dillan described who sent out those 15 emails, you can do it. And people actually respond. It's kind of amazing. It always amazes me when they respond.
Yeah, let me give one example of one I have right now. So a student really wants to connect with this particular Republican consulting firm. Darren and I reached out and we tried to see if we had some connections with this person who the student identified there at that consulting firm. We found we couldn't really get to that person, so I was able to, and now we're really good at devising email addresses. I'm serious.
Oh yeah.
And so we figured out what the email address is, and we have a really nice professional email ready to go that this student is going to send, and it's going to say kind of University of Chicago student inquiry, that sort of thing in the subject line, okay, because then it identifies this isn't some spam, this isn't that. It's going to go to this person. Now the hope is that this person at least is willing to maybe talk to the student for 10 to 15 minutes on the phone, that sort of thing, or maybe the next time the student's in New York, he's going to be able to connect with this person directly. But however, if this doesn't work, literally it took, maybe 30 minutes to kind of put together this text to this email, no skin lost, right? In other words, fine, so he gives it a go, doesn't hear back, well maybe that's not the right fit for him and he can look other places.
Which is the great thing about email. You have nothing to lose, right? You send the email, what's the worst that can happen? They don't read it. That's fine, right? I mean, you would like them to read it, but it's okay if they don't. Nothing is going to happen to you if they don't read it, right? They aren't going to email you back, take the time to email you back and say, don't ever send me email again. No. The worst that can happen is they won't read it. That's fine. So you might as well take that risk. It's a very small risk that can result in a very large reward or impact for you. Okay. I have one more quick example that I absolutely love, and I hope I won't call out the person whose example it is. But one of my students I'm working with right now, she doesn't really like doing informational interviews. I mean, very few people really love doing informational interviews. Do you love it?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't. So I've been pushing her to do this. She's really interested in Al Jazeera America. Okay, cool organization. She has a nice combination of journalism and policy knowledge. I encourage her. You know, can you find anybody? Oh, lo and behold, like the dad of a good friend of hers knows a very high level person who works there. So I won't reveal who it is because that might give her up. If any of you know her. So she emails him, and he emailed her back immediately. Okay, he also happens to be a graduate of the university, but she didn't know that at the time. Okay, well, neither did I. So she emails him, he emails her back. She was like, "Oh my God, he emailed me back," and I was like, "Yeah, great." So she emails him again. Didn't hear from him for a while. Ended up finding another contact because now she's motivated. Got a tour of the Al Jazeera America while she was there, and then emails me at the end of December and says, "What should I do? I haven't heard from this first person." I said, email him again, you know. And tell him you had a tour and you love it and whatever. So she emails him again, and he emails her right back, right? So there's a little lag, but then the third time she emailed him, he emailed her right back and says, "Oh, I'm sorry I haven't been in touch. So glad you got to be here and see the place. I've been sending your resume around with my rave review. We have no space here. You'd have to sit on someone's lap. You know, otherwise I would hire you." So she's over the moon, right? So she still doesn't have, it's not like she's been offered a job, but it's a really great contact because somebody who is very well respected in this industry is sending her resume around. And if she had not asked her friend's dad and took that chance, none of this would have ever happened, right? Yeah. So it's really important. So how do you make that ask? I'll go through this really quickly. It's just a simple email. You include University of Chicago in the subject line. People know about this place, right? And they have usually good feelings about it. So, information interview request. Dear Ms. Gonzalez, I'm a senior at the University of Chicago. This is part of the elevator speech, right? Which we're going to practice in a minute. I'm going to make you guys do a little bit of work. I'm a senior at the University of Chicago, graduating in June. I'm very interested in a career in public service related to immigration law. Okay, so specific, not just public service, but a specific area. Okay. That could be, I'm interested in communications. It could be any kind of thing, right? It doesn't have to be an issue area, okay? I admire the work that Latinos Progresando does, and your mission's aligned with my activities throughout college. This is the organization, so why are you writing to them, okay? Not just, I have this list and I'm just sending it to everybody, right? You should have an interest in what they do or some reason for emailing them. I've been involved in the Coalition for Immigrant Rights, blah, blah, blah. So sort of the middle of the elevator speech, right? What do I do? What's my interest here, right? So I know what you do, now you know what I do. Then after graduation, I hope to continue this work with an organization in Chicago such as yours. That's the end of the elevator speech. What's the future of what you want to do, right? And then sort of the details. So would you be available to speak for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, in person or on the phone, okay? If they email you back and say, oh, I don't have any time, whatever, but I'm happy to, correspond by email, great. That's great. That's fine too. You're letting them know what you want from them and then give them some availability, okay? It's really hard if you say to somebody who's very busy, let me know when you're available. Because now you've made it so they have to go look at their calendar, they have to find a date, they have to give it to you. Even if they're not available when you are, they'll appreciate having some direction of, oh, it could be this day or that day. Let me look and see. Oh, I could fit it in on that day. It's much easier to say yes if you give them some times than broad times, not like 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock on these 2 days and that's all, right? You need to be flexible. But you're letting them know, like, I'm respectful of your time. I'm not going to make you kind of chase me around to find a time for us to meet.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think, making sure you give pretty broad windows. You can also say, or please let me know a time
Absolutely.
convenient for you,
Right.
and I'd be happy to accommodate you. In other words, so yeah, because I always appreciate that. If somebody says like, let me know what time, I'm like, it's like too much, too
Right.
broad.
Right. It's an email that is easily ignored because you say, I don't know, I'll get back to that later. 4 weeks later, you're like, oh, I never emailed that person back.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Similarly, you can keep track of these people, and you should, because you will not remember who it is that you talked to or the last time you talked to them, right? It might be, oh, was that 2 months ago or 8 months ago? Keep track of them either in a spreadsheet. Again, whatever works for you guys to keep track of people or to keep track of organizations, do that. I like the spreadsheet because it works well. If you gather cards, I hate business cards because I just end up with a pile of them on my desk, and I'm like, what am I doing with these? But if that works for you to keep business cards in like some kind of folder or something, taping. I know someone who like tapes them onto 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and then sticks them in a binder. Like, whatever works for you.
Well, now there are apps.
Yes.
You can just take a quick photo of that business card, and you can just use an app that puts them all into electronic.
Also that. Evernote's awesome because it, I don't work for them, but if they want to send me free products, I'd be happy to have them.
We'll send this to them.
Right, exactly. But you can just take notes at a meeting. I actually do this. I actually did it when Dylan and I were meeting the other day. I can take notes at a meeting on paper, and then it has a document camera, and I just take a picture of it. I put it in that note, and then if other times I'm taking notes and I'm typing them, it all goes together, and I can search them, right? So if you're like, you can add tags. So like, if you met the person at TNS and you have all these TNS tags, even if you don't remember their name, you'll find them because you'll remember where you met them. So it's really helpful. And then finally, and I will talk more about this at the end, please, 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 please do not forget to follow up with the person. Say thank you, right? Here's a little example, very simple. Thank the person. If they said to you, oh, here's some great resources for you, or I would love for you to meet my colleague, X, then that's what you say in the thank you letter, right? Thank you so much for taking the time. I really love, you mentioned your colleague X, I'd really love to follow up to get, to connect with that person so that you remind them of either what they promised you or what you promised you would do, okay?
And I think one thing that's cool about that is you don't have to feel like you need to follow up right immediately. Maybe it's somebody who will be more useful for you, say after your summer, that kind of thing, but just follow up and set those expectations.
Right.
So I remember I had a really nice meeting actually with one of these UCIPS alums who I now hired, and I had a meeting with her about 5 or 6 months ago, and she was kind of in that place of starting to look out. I gave her some contacts, and I said, oh, these would be great people for you to connect with, and I just remember I loved it. She sent me an email, a couple days later, and she said, this is great, thank you for your time, da-da-da. I'm not quite ready to connect with blah, blah, blah. I'm going to do some research on her and her organization. I'd love to follow up with you in a month or two, and then I feel like I'll be ready.
Right.
Which is just set the expectation.
And that is the key part. My brother is very extroverted. He's much more like Dylan than I am. And I said, he's a great networker. And I said, this is like a few years ago, I was like, how do you keep up with all these people, right? Because he knows people from he used to work for the city, and he knows people from 7 or 8 years ago. He still talks to them every 6 months or something. And he said, oh, you just have to keep in touch with them regularly and send them little notes or give them a call and just say hi, which to me seems totally weird. But it works. It is what you need to do, right? Because I was like, why did the person want to hear from me saying hi? Who cares? They do care. It is nice, right? I mean, if someone sends you an email and says, oh, I saw you 6 months ago. I just wanted to say hi. How you doing? You don't feel like, oh, right? You feel like, oh, that's nice, okay? They feel the same way. So as Dylan is saying, send the thank you note, but if you're not ready to do whatever they offered, then let them know. I'll follow up with you in a couple of months, and then do that. And that's what the tracking sheet helps with. So.
Well, and I mean, I think Novia and I would both agree. Here's the thing. If you're a first year and you start doing this now, I cannot tell you how valuable this will be for you when you're a fourth year and you have, 30 contacts minimum.
Absolutely.
You've connected over, those few years, and where you have a place to start. And similarly, if you're a grad student, if you're graduating in June, I guarantee you, even if you get your dream job or you go to grad school, for the next couple of years, you're going to be out there looking sometime. And all of our alums from the UChicago Careers and Public and Social Service programs say to us, they use these tracking sheets. They go back to them 2-3 years later, right? And they reference them and they say, oh, now I'm ready to get into economic development. I needed to do some policy, whatever work before, and so here are my contacts for that. I mean, we guarantee you will use these, you will go back to them. This is something that will be invaluable.
And over the long term, just keeping up with people even on a yearly basis. Send a holiday card. If you don't like to send holiday cards, send a 4th of July card, like whatever. Like just make it so that they remember that you're in their sort of circle, right? That you're in their orbit, yeah. Questions? One thing I will say is make sure that you follow up within like 24 to 48 hours the first time. Okay. If you meet with somebody and then like 3 weeks go by and you say, oh, thanks so much, they're going to be like, for what? They might not remember that they even met with you. But if you email them a couple days later, or even 1 day, 1 or 2, 3 days later, they'll say, oh, that's so nice, I did meet with that person. And they'll have better of a chance of remembering you later, right, if you just had one conversation.
So the next 2 slides, we're going to get you guys doing stuff. So
yes.
Getting interactive. All right.
So if you're
get ready.
Falling asleep, now's the time to wake up. Okay, so the elevator speech. Why am I bothering with this? What is it? It's a 30 to 60 second, 50 to 100 word description of you, okay? Why do you need it? Why are we making you do this exercise? You'll use it in multiple venues, multiple situations. You bump into an acquaintance, somebody that you had an informational interview with, 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, right? You can say, oh, hey, I graduated, I'm doing this now, I'm planning on doing that now. You have a 60-second thing that you can introduce yourself with, okay? It also helps you clarify your short-term goals, so it'll force you to think about what it is that you want to do in the short term. And it consists of who are you, right? Where have you been? And where do you want to go? Okay, it's very simple. So we're going to practice, right? If I was going to give my own elevator speech, it would be, first of all, terrifying for me. And then I would get over that, and I would say, hi, my name is Novia Pagone. I'm the program director for the Careers in Public and Social Service program at the University of Chicago. And I'm really interested in continuing to do this work while also learning more about university administration so I can continue to expand my goals, right? My ultimate goal is to sort of work in a sort of higher level at the university administration. Okay? The last thing I'm just kind of making up. Okay, so pairs, person next to you, don't move around too much because the room isn't that mobile. Take 3 minutes, okay, not a lot of time. 1 minute for each person to practice and a minute of sort of getting organized time. I'm going to ask you afterward to talk about something that was really good and something that needs improvement. Okay, I'll just get a few of you to report out.
Yeah, okay. Just try it with each other.
Okay.
Okay, resume, we're going to get you guys doing an exercise as well. So we're handing you out a resume that in some ways is very good and strong, and in some ways has some intentional and some obvious, some not so obvious errors, okay? So what I would like you guys to do is work with the person next to you, connect with them, and there's probably 15 to kind of a max of 20 things that you could point out that are wrong with this resume. So we'd like you to take the next couple of minutes, work with the partner next to you, and identify what the errors are in this, and then we're going to tell you how to do it well, okay? So let's see, what errors did you notice? Raise your hand and then I'll call on you and give me some of the big errors that you noticed. Yes?
There are multiple formatting errors.
So all right, name 2.
Let's see, we have the date is in the wrong place for the Associate Professor of Law at Fordham University, and at one point, that's under Eve Sauer, the University of Chicago is written twice.
Yeah, right. Good, good. Okay, yes?
This person wrote the Constitution of the United States of America.
What?
Uncommon Garden Project.
Right. So Jade, what does that suggest to you? In other words, what's wrong about that?
Well, Jane Smith didn't proofread.
Or
also lied.
is totally lying. Right, correct.
Yeah, she was an assistant professor.
Assistant professor, exactly. So Jane Smith was not actually, she was a research assistant to assistant professor. Okay, what else? Yeah?
Seems to me that there's just too much information under this one first experience,
Yeah, no,
It just seems very overwhelming.
yeah, absolutely. I think that that could probably be shortened. It could be condensed. You know, the bullets could be a little bit shorter. So I'd say I'm going to go through the right ways to format and things like that in a second. But I'd say 5 bullets is fine as long as it's easy to digest what's in there. You know, if they're really long and intense and deep, it can be too much and too hard. Yes.
I was gonna say also under Washington Park Consortium, that they should always start with action verbs instead of I organize or we design.
Exactly. Yep, absolutely. So this isn't a story, a narrative, you know, that kind of thing. So we like to start with action verbs, you know, organized, coordinated, that sort of thing. Yes?
Well, I have a comment and then a question. So under your present work, it should be a present tense
Verb. You're absolutely right. It should be.
And then my question, so some of the dates I noticed, like they say January 2012 to June 2011. It seems wrong, but then I don't know, I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's incorrect. Absolutely. So they didn't proofread, the dates are wrong, you know, that sort of thing. Another one of those was they put Dean's List 2009 to 2012, but they're graduating in 2014. So that they are a 6-year student here, if that's the case. Let's get someone who didn't. Yeah, Daphne.
I don't understand how they have a 4.2 GPA.
Oh. Is that not offered here? Right. So again, lying is not okay. You know, we want you to take credit for things you did. So if you actually planned and organized the, 400-person event, I want you to take credit for that. I don't want you to say assisted with, okay? So in other words, under working group member, assisted with the analyzing, assisted with conducting, assisting with conducting, errors there. If you did it, if you analyzed the, material, et cetera, give yourself credit, okay? We don't particularly think assisted with is that strong. Sometimes it may be the case, but I have a little trick for you, which is if you assisted with something, you could say organize the blah, 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 blah conference in collaboration with 15 other students as members of this RSO, et cetera, okay? But yeah, absolutely. Okay, a couple more from over here. Yeah.
Considering a lot of her experiences are already environmentally related, listing her relevant coursework that also was the same kind of thing is kind of redundant in a way, considering she already has a lot going on. So like,
right, so that's a great kind of resume 301, right, as Novia like to say. Yeah, so that's a good point. What we're going to talk about is intentionally, so this kind of goes to, I think, Kimberly, this was kind of your point a little bit ago. She's had all of these environmentally connected type experiences, but why should an employer at another type of organization care? Well, because she can do program development and coalition building work, because she can do data collection and research. Frankly, this person was applying for, originally this resume years ago, was applying for a research assistant position at the law school that had nothing to do with environment, but they needed these same kind of skills. So she's able to say, even though it's all been in this particular realm, I am actually able to do the kinds of things you need me to do, and here's how I'm going to frame it. So let's take one more error, and then maybe a couple more comments like that about what could make it stronger, right? So, because in other words, you're pointing out it's a little bit redundant because we're clear on that. Yeah, Loretta.
I just think that you're making the person who's reading it work too hard. I think that, the bullet should be much shorter and more succinct, so that they don't have to, I would just throw this on the side, honestly.
Right.
Because, it's just, I'm working too hard.
Good. That's a great lead in to what we're going to talk about. Yeah, and perfect. No, thank you. And Miranda, we'll take one last one, and then we'll tell you how to do it.
I was thinking that additional information might just sound too vague, and that especially for the things that she has listed, skills would be a better term to use.
Right, that's another good kind of resume 301. Exactly. So additional information, if it's kind of a mishmash of a couple things you're trying to put under there and there's really no other place for them, is fine. I think in this case, these are skills, so let's call it skills. And then, formatting wise, it's italicized, the other titles aren't, as well as it's all in bold and that sort of thing, so it's weird. So you guys really hit the big ones, okay? So now we're gonna kind of go through things to really keep in mind about resumes, and here's the thing. I want you to listen because we're not, there's no specific prescription, only these kinds of resumes get, but these are some bigger picture keys that I think will really help your resume get noticed, okay? So, Loretta, this goes to exactly what you were just talking about. We want clean, consistent formatting, okay? I don't care if you use italics here and bold there and that sort of thing. Wherever you use it in the same way, okay? It should be clean and consistent formatting. And frankly, we suggest a really minimal combination of the bold, italics, flat kind of straight text. Just keep it simple, because the idea is, I want an employer, Loretta just said she'd put this to the side, right? I want an employer to look at your resume, be able to really glean very quickly. I mean, sometimes we say they spend 30 seconds looking at these. Nah, it's more like 15. I mean, we want them to be able to glean really quickly what you can bring to the table and why they should care, okay? So that's why this kind of thing is important. And Novia and her team will be more than happy to look over your resumes and to say to you, like, we got to get this out, we got to get this out, here's how to clean it up, here's how to streamline it, okay? In other words, please take it over to somebody at Career Advancement, ideally Novia and somebody on her team, but they will help you so that the resume you are going out into the world with is one where people can just get really quickly why they should care that you've done these things. Because otherwise, I don't want to read it, if it's like too hard to read, if it's too hard to digest, if I'm like, if I was hiring, if I was not looking for somebody who had environmental experience and that sort of thing, and this was organized in a different way, I'd be like, this isn't really relevant to me, and I would miss all the great things that this person could have brought together. So that's why it's packaged in a certain way.
I have a lot of friends that work in government, and typos, I have one in particular she's an attorney, and she just throws it away if there's a typo. That's it. You're not getting considered. Not even like, well, there's a typo, let me read the whole thing. Nope, typo, out. So, and she's not alone. Right, so those are the kinds of things, little things, the organization, what Dylan's saying, sort of the bigger picture things, really, really important. The details, typos, things like that are also really important. So it's important to have multiple people reading it, making sure that it looks good and it's ready to go.
So that's a really important point. Here's the thing, we know your eyes probably swim when you look at your resume because you're so sick of it, okay? That's why use your friends, use one another, use us. Have somebody take that look, that final, 2 or 3 look at it, right? Like the second or third look, even if you're like, oh no, I know that it's perfect, I mean, our eyes are trained to do this, so you would be shocked the kind of things that we can pick up. Similar to me, when I'm reading resume, like I can see that stuff immediately, and I'll be like, really, they want a job here and like they didn't take the time to make sure that this was perfect? That worries me, because I want somebody who's going to be paying attention to the detail of the task that I give them or that they need to do for us, because it says to an employer, here's what you're going to bring to the table.
The person you're working for doesn't want to have to proofread your work. They don't want to have to do that, but if you are that person, then they will. It'll be annoying for you, and it'll be annoying for them, and the job probably won't last long for you because you probably get sick of it and leave. Or vice versa. So best to put out your best foot forward.
Yep. Relatable, okay? This is really important. So you may think, okay, I have my resume, it's great. This is the resume I'm going to use, every single year. I'm just going to update it from the summer. No. Resumes need to be targeted, okay? And you need to, they are a living, breathing document that you need to think about every time you apply for a job. I'm not saying spend 5 hours on it for every single job, but I'm saying, when you look at a job description, you're gonna need to move some of the bullets around, okay? If it's for fundraising and you did fundraising, but it was down as bullet number 5, put it up as 1, okay? Similarly, if it's research experience, make sure that you're collecting the information in a way where the employer can say, for this job, I'm looking for X, Y, Z, and I can immediately see in this resume that this person can bring it to me, okay? Like, in other words, you really, really want to think about that. Yes?
So you would put relevant experience at the top, even if it's not in chronological order of like when you held the job?
So that's a great question. If you look at the way this is done, and this one has errors, but essentially what we did is this is called a more functional resume. So within each section, it is chronological, or it should be. If there are errors, it's because we put those there intentionally. Within each section, it's chronological or reverse chronological, but it may be that because my data collection and research experience actually did happen after Washington Park Consortium, but I'm putting it down there because it's part of that functional presentation, okay? And sometimes it may be, for most of my resume, it's kind of like program management and development, and then it's like all my different jobs the past few years, but if you really are then trying to, like, in other words, if this employer, I remember I worked on this with, Novia's current colleague, Pat, was looking for somebody who had program development experience, who could kind of build coalitions, groups, somebody who could do data collection and research, and all of that is spelled out here. This person got the job, frankly, so, yeah.
So clustering your experiences this way will really help. That if you had something that you did 2 years ago, but it's like the most relevant thing for the job you're applying for now, you get to like bump it to the top, which is great. I actually could make I'm not a communications person, but I could actually, given all the jobs I've done, I could make a communications resume if I needed one, and it would be in one little cluster, right? I'm not doing that, but.
Sure. By the time you're a fourth year, what we usually see is that you might have 1 or 2 functional resumes, so maybe one that's called your research resume, maybe one that's called your communications resume, and maybe one that's based on your issue interest. If you've had a lot of experience in, kind of legal services or, housing and transportation, that sort of thing. So it's okay to have multiple resumes like that. And it really doesn't, once you have kind of your format and the text of your bullets, it's really not that hard. You're just kind of moving things around, okay? But that's also why you want to make sure to proofread. But again, relatable means I want you to think about that next time you submit your resume. Why should an employer care that I've done these things? I want you to think about that with every bullet you write, And so that's why when, I'm going to move right on to impactful. Easy to see how you have made an impact at the places you've worked. If I am an employer, here's what I'm thinking about. I have a job to fill. I have an internship I need a student to do. How can I find somebody who can do all those things for me, right? So when I write a job description, and Novia is going to talk a little bit more about this, I'm not doing that for fun. I'm not doing that because I think it's fun to write job descriptions. I need somebody who can come in and do those things. So your resume needs to tell me that you're that person. Your resume needs to say, you're looking for somebody who can do communications and writing and is detail oriented and can help me with my marketing and my outreach and blah, blah, blah. I need to be able to look at this resume and really quickly interpret that you can bring me those skills, okay? And similarly, we have a lot of numbers in this resume, and when we send you the clean version of this, error-free, the numbers are really key. So this person, when she first brought this forward, she was like, oh yeah, I oversaw this budget and, it helped a bunch of families and stuff. And we're like, well, how big was the budget? 20,000. That makes a big difference, okay? Because that says to me as an employer, this person's managed a $20,000 budget before, she can do that for me. Or she could manage my $5,000 program budget, whatever it is. This impacted 75 underprivileged families. That says to me the breadth of experience and the work that this person has done. So you want to include those numbers, you want to quantify so that it really shows the impact that you have had at a particular organization as part of an RSO. Frankly, if it's, as Novia said, if you're a first year, high school is going to be on there. Second year, probably there too. And that's fine. If you're applying for a journalism internship, you haven't yet done the maroon this year, but you were editor-in-chief for your high school paper, please put that on there. Again, kind of thinking about how you can quantify the impact you've had in the past so that I, as the employer, can immediately tell, oh, this person's going to come to my organization and they're going to be impactful. That's the person I want to join. Absolutely. Okay. It needs to be true. Obvi. So that's why we put in those, lies in there, because guess what? They'll find that out. They'll know, okay? And I actually find that you guys have more of a harder time giving yourselves enough credit. So I'll see you say, oh, I assisted with blah, blah, blah. And it turns out you ran some event for 400 people and that sort of thing. So I want you to give yourselves credit for sure, but don't give yourselves too much credit or don't lie, right? In other words, make it true. And if you have any questions about that, how do I frame this? Maybe it's I co-founded an organization with somebody and I actually did all the work and they didn't do a lot of stuff. And, how do I present that? That's what we're here for. We're here to help, okay? And then finally, comprehensive, right? Yes, most of the time for where you are in your life, these should be one page. If you're a little bit older, if you've done a lot of different things, if you need a page and a half, if you need 2 pages, that sort of thing, feel free to ask us. There are some places where they say 1-page resume, no matter what. So make sure that you're actually listening to what they're asking for and providing that for them. but make it comprehensive, you know? And we are geniuses, frankly, at helping you fit it on the page. We're geniuses at helping you find that tiny little space. I mean, seriously, I would say this to people all the time, and they'd be like, no, you can't get this. They would come to me, it'd be this much on the second page, and I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna fit it all in there, and it's gonna look pretty, and it's gonna look awesome, and I can do it, and we can show you some tricks of the trade, and all that kind of good stuff. So we want your picture to be complete, but you know, in a dream world, make sure that you're providing it in a clean format and that it's what the employer asked for. Yeah?
How many resumes on average would you say a person has?
So are you, what year are you?
I'm in graduate school.
At Harris?
No.
At SSA. Okay. How many resumes should? I mean, I would say now you're in grad school, that sort of thing. I would say at a minimum, I mean, it's really contextual, so it depends on kind of what you're looking for. But I would say at a minimum, you're going to want to have 2, and one is probably more focused on kind of your field placement and that sort of thing, you know, and geared to particular content area and what you're looking for in that way. And then the other one is maybe, and I think, you know, Novia probably has some good ideas about this, like, you can also have an ongoing resume that just is a full listing of anything and everything you've ever done from which you can pull in as needed.
Yeah, I highly, highly recommend a master resume, no matter what age you are or how much experience you have, because you will forget about things that you did. Also, like if you ran, you know, you helped with this random event, and maybe you're not part of the RSO, but you really played a big role in this event, like you might forget about that in 4 years. But it was actually, and then it turns out that it's really relevant. So keep a master resume, even if you don't keep it as organized as you'd like. Just get the information on a document so you can remember, go back and fill in the details. Absolutely.
Okay, so Novia is going to talk to you about really bringing some of these same concepts into the cover letter. Okay, Will can help. So this is a good example, right?
Yeah,
this stuff. If you see errors in this, you let us know.
Yeah, let me know if there's errors. This is should be a clean example.
I'll stand right here on this side.
Of a cover letter, and it's for a full-time job. Okay, so for those of you who are applying mostly to internships at this point, if you look at this and think, oh my God, do I have to write a letter like this for every Metcalf I apply for? No. But your letter will probably be a little shorter, probably a little less detailed in terms of, or a little less, comprehensive and full in terms of the experience, because if you're a first or second year, you just haven't had the time to get this much experience. Okay, so don't be intimidated by the sort of length of it.
Oh, can we go to that slide? We're on it? Okay.
Okay,
So, guys.
Before we talk about that, I'm going to give you some examples from that, so just hang on to it. Quickly go through some of the basics of a cover letter. It should be one page, okay? We say that it should describe you in the context of them, okay? The them being the employer. Okay, so it's not just all about you. It's about you in their context, okay? And that comes with the job description. So if you have a job description, a really great exercise to do is to take a look at the job description, get out your highlighters, highlight the skills that they're looking for. Then look at those skills and group them into broader areas, right? So if they're asking someone to do social media, and they're asking for someone who can write, I'm sticking with the communications because it's easy for me. They're asking someone to write press releases, draft newsletters, that's the kind of, right? Those are all communication skills. So you have that broader category. You can then look at your resume and say, okay, am I calling out my communication skills? Am I prioritizing those? Then when you go and write the cover letter, you want to talk about your communication skills, right? You want to give them examples, and there'll probably be other kinds of skills they're looking for, administrative, management type skills. You'll do that too, okay? But by taking the job description isn't just like a thing you should breeze through and go, oh, I want this job. It's something you should read at least twice, probably many more times than that, in detail, the entire thing, not while like people are talking to you, like actually focus on it because it's really important so that you can prepare really good materials for the job. So you in the context of them, tell them why you're interested in the job, okay? Be enthusiastic about it. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be all serious business, right? It needs to be professional, so that's why I say be an enthusiastic professional, okay? And you can get that across in the letter without saying, this is the most amazing job opportunity I've ever seen. And you can say, I was really excited to learn about this opportunity through, Chicago Career Connection or wherever, blah, 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 right? That shows professional enthusiasm. Like I said, read the job description at least twice, but really you should probably be reading it like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times. relate your skills to the skills that they value in the job description. Okay, that's really important because if I'm hiring a communications, actually I am hiring a communications intern, and you send me a cover letter and it says that you're really interested in research and analysis and all this kind of thing. I'm glad to know that, that's nice, but I don't care, right? I want to know what your communication skills are, not what your research skills are. So that's again why you need to read the job description, because you need to know what is it that they want to know about you, right? How can you relate your skills to what they're looking for?
And, one of the things that I absolutely 100% of the time do with job descriptions is I annotate them based on my skills and experience. So I go through, and it may not be that they're clustering them and saying, here are the communication skills I need, but they may say, need somebody to do this policy work, I need somebody to run these programs, I need somebody to do this. And throughout, and we're going to send you an example of this when we do follow-up material, they're mentioning communication skills. So I'm going to go through that, and I'm going to say, when I worked here, I did this that was relevant. When I worked here, I did this. So Novia's folders of resumes, I have folders of annotated job descriptions where it says all of my different experiences and how it matters and fills in. I mean, crafting a cover letter, it's really an art,
It really is, and it's very different from other kinds of writing that you do every day. So you kind of, and it seems repetitive because it's like the sales pitch where you, first paragraph, you tell them what you told them. How does it go again? Tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them.
Right.
So you might be writing it and thinking, this is terrible. I just keep repeating things in a different way. Yeah, that's fine. But it won't sound repetitive if you're doing it well. It won't seem like, geez, they just told me the same thing throughout the whole letter. No, if you practice a lot, you'll have these beautiful cover letters that kind of tell your story in the employer's context,
right? Which
is what you want to do.
And I guarantee you, I know I do. I love sentences in cover letters that say things like, you are seeking somebody who can do X, Y, Z. Here's my experience in that way. Therefore, I know that I could contribute meaningfully at Brookings Institution given my, 4 years of research and analysis skills. So you're painting this picture for them. Here's what you're looking for. Here's what I have. And you're rounding it out and saying, I can bring those to you. I mean, it makes our job so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Employers are going to spend, if they spend 10 or 20, 30 seconds on your resume, they're going to spend maybe 30, 40 seconds, 50 seconds, a minute maybe on your cover letter, right? Sort of vast majority of them. So they need to see things very clearly, very easily that they're interested in, right? So if you have these a lot of times these long, elaborate sentences with like multiple parts that would be really awesome in your bachelor's thesis, if they get lost in it, it's like, oh, I don't know, I can't even like be bothered to read this, it's too much. If you have paragraphs that are, half a page long, like you need to get kind of clear, concise, nice, easy to read sentences and paragraphs together.
And we don't want you guys to feel overwhelmed by everything we're telling you, but we're telling you that we are then here to support you. So
Absolutely.
Novia's program is available to meet with all of you guys one-on-one and to really talk to you about these things and help you, understand. Great. Thank you for the kind of overview and all of this. Now, how do I do this in practice, on my resume? Like that's what she and her team do and can provide to you for sure.
I love reading cover letters. So come on in and see me. I'll get out my blue pen. We'll sit at my little table and go through it and talk about sort of asking questions. So what Dillan said earlier about you guys often don't give yourselves enough credit. That is so true. That it'll say like in the cover letter, and at this job I organized this event. Does that tell you guys anything? If you're hiring somebody to organize events, does that tell you what kind of an events organizer they are?
No.
So then I can say, okay, well, what did you do at the event, right? So then the student starts talking and I go, okay, write that down, right? That's what should be here. And it's helpful and I enjoy it. So.
Yeah, and I also think actually that's a good, sometimes when I'm writing cover letters or that sort of helping students, like say out loud or try to just write what you want to say, because they'll say, here's what I want to say, and I'll be like, okay, perfect, that's perfect, then say that, So, because I do think you kind of get lost in the academic vortex and you're like, oh, well, I need to, explain it like this and that, but it needs to be clear, concise, easily relatable, I can understand the impact. you know?
Yeah, talking about it is very, very helpful.
Yeah.
I think because you can't go on and on and on usually when you're talking.
Yeah, another great kind of UCIPS alumna example is, you know, we had somebody who had applied to Princeton in Latin America. She had gotten this great position, and then because of visa issues, she wasn't actually able to go take that position. So we were able to convince Princeton in Latin America to let her, you know, participate in the program the following year without even applying. We said, can she apply to, you know, organizations that she would like to work for via your program? They said, yes, you can apply. She can apply to 3. I said, go back and ask them if you can apply to 6. Okay, so anyway, I'm big on like, just ask. So they said, sure, you can apply to 6. She wrote 6 cover letters to these organizations. And now this is a really hard program to get into, and it's hard to then be noticed by the organization, and you have to apply directly to the organization. 5 of those 6 organizations wanted to interview her. The one that didn't have a position left anymore. 5 of those 6 organizations, her cover letters were so impactful. They all wanted to interview her. And frankly, I think she got like 3 or 4 job offers from that. You know, I mean, it really, really makes a difference.
Yeah, they really are looking to say, does this person get what we're looking for?
Yeah.
Right.
And can they do it?
And can they do it?
Okay, so bear with us just a couple more. We're going to do interviews really quickly. And then you're going to get lunch, and then we need you for 15 or 20 more minutes after lunch just to chill, and we're going to talk about following up, and we're going to talk about how you can engage with UCIPS and how you can engage with IOP. Okay, so we are going to get you out of here early, which is great. And so let's talk about interviews, okay? And here's the main reason why I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. Interview Savvy being offered by Career Advancement a week from yesterday. It is Friday, January 31st at 1 p.m., okay? Interviews themselves are an art and take so much practice, okay? So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but you guys should take advantage of that program. It's a new program. It's 1 to 5 that Friday, and I think it'll be a really good use of your time, frankly. I'm going to attend, too. You know, I'm going to go and sit there and see if there's anything I'm missing.
It's great, and after you attend that, if you want to do a practice interview, we have practice interviews. You can make an appointment, go and see them, practice, come and see us. We're happy to practice with you.
So these are so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but these are my kernels of useful information about interviews. You want to prepare for questions, direct questions about the organization, about the position. Prepare, please, with friends, with Novia, with other people. In other words, I want your friends and people you're practicing with to fire questions at you. Why do you want to work for this organization? Why do you want this position? Blah, blah, blah. Practice answering those questions. If it's possible to research who the interviews are, that's an okay question to ask. I know sometimes, again, you guys are like, is it okay to ask? If they say, oh, you're going to be interviewed at 10 a.m., you can say, oh, I'd love to know, if you have identified who will be interviewing me. They may say, oh, we're not exactly sure yet, blah, 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 no big deal. They may say you will interview with XYZ and name the people. Have interviewed them, okay? I mean, have researched them so that when you go to that interview, you can say things like, oh, I saw that you were an XYZ. You can relate your experience. Oh, you know what? So, when Novia and I were connecting about the UCIPS position that she now has, it was really helpful for me to understand more about, her background, and she knew about my background, and so she was able to say, connecting, oh, well, these are some of the things that you've done, and it makes it so much more relatable when the employer, as well as it shows that you care, like if you have researched the person who's going to be doing the interview, you've researched the organization, you're really familiar with not just your position that you're applying for, but how it fits in with the other pieces. That is key because it shows that you're not just going to be this siloed individuals like I'm doing communications, but that you're interested in and care about the broad purpose of the organization. Yeah.
Can you give an example of how you might do that without sounding too forward and too knowledgeable about these people?
Oh, like having creeped them? Like that sort of thing? Yeah. No, that's actually a good question because I remember my current assistant director, Karnika, she was like, she was one of our UCIP students a couple years ago, and she was like, I know that she has 2 kids who are really cute, and she was out in the park with them, she'd done all this research, and she was like, is that the kind of thing I want to mention? I'm like, nah, probably not. I think LinkedIn is key, okay? Have a LinkedIn account at a minimum so that you can understand what somebody's professional background is. And it's okay to say, frankly, it looks really professional if you said, oh, I saw on LinkedIn that your former job was with the blah-de-da. That is perfectly normal. It's going to show, what LinkedIn is. It's going to show you're on LinkedIn. It's going to show that you cared enough to do research, and it's simple, you know?
If you feel weird about, because if you don't change your settings, you can be identified. People can say, oh, Dylan looked at your profile, right? You can change those settings if that's weird to you or seems creepy and you don't want people to know. You can just be anonymous. So if that's something that you think would be helpful.
Yeah. So practice interviewing, we talked about that. Here's a key, and this is from my own personal experience. I used to get so nervous at interviews because I'd be like, it's this job or I'm screwed. I'm going to be homeless. I'm never going to be able to do anything, you know? And just remember, it's not life or death. You're going to do your best. You're going to try to put your best foot forward. Here's the thing, though. You want to take it seriously. You want to dress really nicely, you know, dress the part. You want to have done the work beforehand. But you know, if you feel like if you're somebody who's like, I get so nervous in interviews, you know, I used to do that all the time, and just kind of remembering like, okay, I'm going to give it my go, and if I'm not the one selected, I really, really tried. I put my best foot forward, and at worst, it was good experience. It was good experience to have that interview. So, you know, this is a little bit interviewing, kind of 301, be present and focused. And what I mean by that is, you know, especially if you're too nervous, sometimes you're like, I have the answers to the questions that I know that they're going to ask. I have the answers all in my head and I'm ready to spit them out, you know, and that sort of thing. You want to make sure that you're there and you're engaged in that interview that's happening right there. And, you know, what can really show so much is if you're listening, if you're noting down who the people are. Let's say it's a panel interview. Our colleague Pat has a wonderful, you know, kind of device where it's like, if it's a panel interview, make yourself a little diagram and see if you can catch the names and write those down so you can say, oh, Mr. Brown, you know, when you ask blah, 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 it'll blow their minds. You know, similarly, as you're having the interview conversation, listen to what they say. Oh, you know, it's so good that you have these skills because we're actually going to be working on a forthcoming project on blah-de-da-de-da. Listen to what they say so that then later on in the interview or in your follow-up thank you, you can say, and you know what, actually I realized that I also had this experience last summer where I volunteered on a campaign and I know that I could bring those skills to that project that you talked about that's forthcoming. You know, show them that you're listening and that sort of thing. Yeah.
What's your opinion on like taking notes from the interview?
So I'm a big note taker. Like I write tons and tons of things down. And so I always have, well, first of all, you should always have pen and paper no matter what. At a minimum, it makes you like look interested in that sort of thing. You should probably write at least a few things down. You know, I'm a big note taker, so I take notes. You know, I have never felt odd doing that. What you have to make sure you're doing, though, is that you're not just paying attention to your paper, but you're also engaging with them, you know? So that's why this is a little bit of an art. You have to make sure that you're kind of, okay, writing down the things that you're saying, then looking back up, engaging with the person who's asking you the question and that sort of thing. I'm totally open to it.
Yeah, as long as it's not the thing that you're mostly doing.
Correct.
I think it's great. It's also helpful if they're asking a question and you're like, oh, I want to talk about that. Write it down. Write it, you know, one word for yourself so you remember that that was what you wanted to answer.
Exactly, and sometimes there'll be a two-parter, right?
Right.
Could you talk about da-da-da-da-da and how that relates to whatever, whatever, you know? And so if you've written that down, you're able to say to them, you know, okay, so to the first part and answer it, and then the second part of your question was this. Similarly, if you need them to repeat something, like you're not, you know, this isn't like, these are people too, right? If you need them to repeat something, if you missed that second part and you said, you know, I know there was a second part to your question, could you repeat it? That's fine. Like you're not going down for it. The more important thing is they want to make sure that you're answering their questions. So they'd love it if you ask them to repeat.
It's not an exam as much as it might feel like one.
Right.
It's a conversation.
All right, so here's the biggest, okay, the biggest thing on the face of the planet. And this is why you need to practice, okay? Please, please, your answer should be, and I know that I'm not a good example because I talk a lot, but your answer should be 2 to 5 sentences, you know? I mean, nothing is worse, and I can't even tell you the number of people who are out in the world who are the worst interviewees on the face of the planet. The number of interviews that I've sat at, a recent one, there were 15 of us on the panel interviewing this person, okay, and I was participating. Yeah, it was a little, but wait, listen. It wasn't for a job of mine.
No,
Yeah. The interviewee talked so much that we got through 2 questions in 45 minutes. I mean, it was horrible. So what that said to me is, this person doesn't care that I've taken my time to be here because no one got, you know, this person didn't care that, like, wasn't interested, was only interested in getting everything that he or she wanted to say out and did not care that, other people there had taken time might want to know, oh, how can what you're doing here relate to what I'm doing? We had all introduced ourselves. We all had these different roles at the university. And more than not, that happens all the time. So I guarantee you, even if you feel like you've been going on, watch their faces as well. If they're like, oh my God, I'm so bored, watch me. I would be like, please read my face that you need to stop talking right now. I mean, it's so important. And that's part of the kind of being present and focused. Watch them if they're like nodding and they're interested in what you're saying, and then just end it. End if you feel like I'm going on and on and on, end it, please. You can show my next slide. My boss gave me this. So I was like, bad sign that my boss gave me this? No, so someone gave him this and he has it and it's funny and it's a joke or whatever. But this is just to say, seriously, the best thing you can do is be conscious of your interviewer's time and the fact that that person probably has 6 to 8 questions that they want you to answer. So, what you should do is the math. If it's a 30-minute interview and there's probably 6 to 8 questions, that's about 2 to 3 minutes, an answer, then leaving time for you to ask questions. That's the other thing. You need to come prepared to ask questions as well. And if you don't get to that part because you've gone on and on and on, they're not going to know that you were really well prepared, that you have some really awesome questions, because that can be a seller, right? When you ask your questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose out
on that
the
opportunity
to ask questions. So my colleagues in the employer relations team, Mara's laughing because she knows, have this, wait, why am I still talking? Or why am I talking? I think it is. Wait,
right.
W-A-I-T. Right. So
why?
think about that. Do I need to still be talking? No. Stop talking.
It's true. It's true. And so if you stop talking. And so even if you think it looks kind of awkward, just be like, and so I hope that that's answered your question.
This is very useful on phone interviews also because you can't see them. If it's not a Skype interview, it's an actual just phone interview. And you don't know if they're zoned out, right? So shorter answers are more helpful, and also answering a short answer and then saying, does that answer your question? Because then they'll say, could you say a little more about this? Or they'll say, that's great, move on.
Right. And let me tell you, I know you hate phone interviews. Everyone hates phone interviews. The interviewer hates phone interviews, okay? Everyone hates them. So the key is practice. Novia, when I used to work there, and I'm sure Novia and her team still do it, we're happy to give you a practice interview. I will call any of you at home and say, okay, let's do it, We're going to do a practice interview. And I want you to sound awake. I want you to sound focused. I mean, we always say, put a suit on for a phone interview. Absolutely. Because then you are in that mode. If you're in your pajamas, you're kind of in pajama mode.
Yeah, don't be hanging around in your bed for a phone interview.
Yeah, no, exactly. What if you hit FaceTime by accident? Awkward. Okay, so we had maybe 2 questions, and then we want to let you guys get food, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about following up, which is super key, and then engaging with UCIPS and engaging with IOP. Again, still think you'll be out of here by 12:30. Okay? Were there 1 or 2 more questions about interviewing? Yeah, Loretta.
I was just curious, in that 45-minute interview, wasn't there someone trying to facilitate? Did somebody try to cut that person off?
Not really, but I think that was part of the problem is this person was so kind of out of tune with what was happening in the room. And I think you also, we also just kept thinking it was going to stop at some point. I mean, it had to. So, are there any other questions about that? Oh, yeah.
I guess for both of you, as people who've interviewed people, going in on the other side, what are you really looking for from the interview that you don't get from the cover letter and resume?
Yeah, that's a great question. You want to start?
Well, so a lot of people are really great writers, and they get their cover letter checked by 1 million people, and they've had help and all of that. In the interview, it's just you, right? So for me, I'm looking to see what are you like, right? Because a lot of people are really great on paper, or vice versa. And they might be, I've interviewed people that I say, well, I don't know, their materials aren't that great, but I'm just interested for some reason, so I want to interview them. And I interview them, and I'm like, amazing. I want to hire this person, right? And then the opposite also happens, where they're amazing on paper. I meet them, and I'm like,
yeah,
sorry. And then that's just the truth, right? Because a lot of the interview and working for someone is about fit. Are you going to be a good fit there? I can't tell that by reading your letter, right? I can tell that you have the skills, but I can't tell how we're going to, if I'm supervising you, I can't tell how we're going to interact from your letter.
Yeah, so I am looking for you to have really understood what my organization does and is all about, my role in that organization, what your role would be, and how you could help me and kind of fit into that organization and do what is written on that job description. I'm looking for enthusiasm. Now, again, like, you don't have to be like, the most extroverted, whatever, but just be enthusiastic and interested in the position. And, I don't want you necessarily going around and lying to every job and telling them that they're your first choice. But if they are, like, tell them that. Or, this is something I'd be really excited to do. I could absolutely see myself joining your team this summer. Like, bring that forward. That can absolutely make the difference,
Yeah, knowledge of the organization shows enthusiasm. If you ask a question that is like on the front page of their website, they're not going to think you're that interested because
Right.
you didn't even take the time to look at the front page of their website. So.
Right, exactly. Do not ask anything that can be answered from their website. No, I'm serious. That's, yeah, okay, so, yeah.
In terms of items like to bring, I have an interview on Monday, and I was wondering, should I bring another hard copy of my resume to give to, he's already seen it, but like to give to him when I come?
Yeah, it can never hurt. So what I actually suggest is probably have 4 to 5 copies, of the resume. If you submitted a cover letter as well, have that, because you never know. It could be a colleague is joining him last minute, what someone's sick, that sort of thing. Oh, I wanted you to have these. It can only be helpful.
And also, they didn't ask for letters of rep, but I have letters of rep that are like specific to this position. Should I bring those just in case at the end be like,
You can bring those. I think that the interview is probably not the place for that. I mean, that's another key thing. And again, Interview Savvy is the program that's, this coming Friday, and this will cover kind of all of these in-depth things. The interview is not the time to figure out, how much they're going to pay for this position, those kinds of things. The interview is to really convince them to hire you. All of those conversations, once you get a job offer, can happen then around compensation, that sort of thing. So normally, letters of rec and people wanting to follow up on references happens after they've really decided that you're the one. And so you could bring them, but I would wait. If they ask for them, great, you have them. If they don't ask for them, don't worry about it.
Make sure you read your own materials before you go to the interview. Also,
Yep.
if you're applying for a bunch of jobs, make sure you know what your cover letter says for the job you're interviewing for, right?
Yeah,
what
sometimes.
did you tell them so that you are? Okay. Okay. So to finish up, we've talked a little bit about following up. I'm going to go through a couple of sort of, key things that you need to do, and then I have a couple of examples I'll give you. So, what's the secret to effectively following up? Actually following up, right? Actually sending the email. So you should try and shoot for 24 to 48 hours after, the, interview or whatever it was. Say thank you. Be brief. Okay, you don't need to send a 1-page thank you letter. It can, half a page or less is great. Try and send individual emails to all the people with whom you met, okay? So if you had an informational interview, you're probably just going to meet with one person, so that's easy. But if you're in a job interview, you might have a panel of people, like the example Dillan gave of 15 people. That's kind of excessive, not usual, but possible. If possible, you want to send individual emails to everyone, okay? Email is fine. If you like to send handwritten notes and through the, postal service, that's fine, but you would need to do it like as you're walking out the door of the interview, basically, right? Because you want them to get it 1 or 2 days later. And the postal service is mostly reliable, but things get lost in the mail sometimes, or take a little longer than you thought. So email's immediate. You can leave the interview if you're in a cab or something. Type up a quick email and send it off. They get it immediately. If you don't get if I'm interviewing you and I'm interviewing 5 people, and 4 of them send me thank you notes, I'm wondering, well, what happened? The other person didn't send a thank you note. And I might be talking to my colleagues who were in the interviews with me and say, did you get a thank you note from that person? No, oh, me neither. Right? So it just adds something negative that you don't want to have and that you don't need to have. It's very easy to send a thank you note. Yes?
Can you do both, or is that?
Email and like a handwritten note.
So then you have a way for them to respond?
You can, if you want to. Yeah, if you want to send the email right away and then send like a handwritten note behind it. I would personally probably think that it's a very thorough person. I wouldn't be negative. I wouldn't be like, they sent me 2. I wouldn't care. What do you think, Dylan?
So So both email and letter?
And letter, yeah.
So one thing that's super important that goes to this is no matter what, send the follow-up email. Because I was giving Novia an example about this from last year.
Yeah.
If you then want to follow up with a handwritten note, I think that's perfectly fine. But here's what happened. I interviewed somebody. I set up this whole day of interviews for this person. He met all of these people at our organization, blah, 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 blah. And we were excited about him. And then I heard nothing for, I'd say, a solid 2 to 3 weeks. And I was like, this is weird. Like, I mean, I did all the, I made it a really interesting day, that kind of thing. About 2 to 3 weeks later, we all started getting these handwritten notes, which was fine. And that was nice. But by that point, I was kind of like, I had already formed an impression where I was like, I didn't really hear from this person for a while, And so even that immediate note that just says, thank you so much for your time, as Novia is going to talk about, reference something that you learned. And then if you want to follow up with handwritten, that's great. But then that way they're like, oh, this person's on top of it. And they're not even going to think about it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, talking about follow-up but not post-interview, what about when you send your resume? Because some people will follow up saying, I just want to confirm you received my resume, if that, the position's still vacant,
Yeah.
or do you suggest to wait if you don't hear back? And then, obviously this would be the appropriate practice for follow-up.
Yeah. I suggest waiting a little while because in some organizations you want to be very mindful of what it says in the job description, right? So if it says like no calls, don't call them. If it says like you're uploading it through a system or something like that, and it's like no calls, no emails, then don't. But if it's been a couple weeks and you feel like maybe you should have heard back, I'm not going to do that.
Oh, okay.
So, you can go ahead and send a follow-up email. If you had correspondence with them and they say, oh, we'll follow up with you, we'll get back to you in a month or whatever, then that's a good time to follow up. So use your best judgment. If you have questions, feel free to shoot us an email and we can help answer it.
What if it's like you had said, one of those things where you just submit it,
Mhm.
and there's no direct person they say to address it to,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't say like don't call us. Should I call to see? I'm applying for this position. I just wanted to check.
To see if they got it or to see who to send it to?
See who to send it, not who to
Who to address it
sir
to.
or madam
Right.
on a cover letter. I'd rather not do that.
Yeah,
But-
do what you can to find out. If you can look around on their website and see who it might be, or ask some of us. We work with a lot of employers, so we might actually know. Oh, you can send it to this person or that person. We recommend a career advancement. Dear hiring manager, dear sir or madam, if you cannot find out who it is. I don't really recommend personally calling. That might be my own personal kind of issue, but I don't recommend calling to say who should I be addressing this to, unless it seems like you talk to a recruiter at a career fair and you want to find out, or something like that.
Yeah, I think, it's more important to get it submitted in a timely manner,
Yeah.
and your hiring manager is always fine. They're not going to even blink at that.
Right.
In terms of following up, if it hasn't said no calls or that kind of thing, I think it's perfectly fine
Yeah.
to, follow up. And let's say you don't have an email address, you don't know how to follow up, to call and say, oh, I submitted an application for the communications manager 2 weeks ago, and I just wanted to call and make sure that they didn't need any, additional information from me and that sort of thing. As long as you're not, stalking them and overburdening them and that sort of thing, it's okay to follow up. It makes you look professional, it makes you look really interested and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So.
Okay, so just the last couple of points here. On sending individual emails, if you can't find out who all the people, you don't know all their names or whatever, make sure you send an email to the person who organized, who was in touch with you, and say in there, I really appreciated meeting with the entire panel. I hope you'll please thank them for their time, that kind of thing, okay? Reference something you learned or something they said that you found particularly interesting. So as Dillan was saying, being present and focused in the interview will then help you have something productive to say in the thank you note. Let them know you'll do something you said you would. So if they say, could you please send us a writing sample or something, send them a thank you note that says, blah, blah, blah. And then if you can attach it, then that'd be really ideal, right? Please find attached the writing sample you requested or whatever it is, okay? Or you can simply reiterate your interest in the job. I really enjoyed talking to you. It has solidified my interest in this position, whatever. But more importantly, just make sure you get it out, okay? I have a friend who like literally carries around thank you notes with her. And so she sends handwritten thank you notes because she is like leaving the interview, standing outside, like writing a quick thank you note and like popping it in the mailbox. She is rare.
If you're that organized, feel free to do
Okay, she is like the most organized human being I know. She's rare. So just send it via email, follow up with a written one if you want.
Yeah, we have 2
Questions?
I have a question about cover letters. Should the cover letter be in the email, or should it be as a separate attachment?
Oh, that is a good question.
And if it's a separate attachment, how long should the note in the email be?
So great question about cover letters and if it's being sent by email, submitting by email. If there are instructions, so first of all, if there are instructions that say please submit it via, in the email or something, follow those first. Otherwise, I have a preference for a very short note in the email that says, please find attached my application materials for X job. I thank you in advance for your consideration, whatever, in your name, like literally 2 lines, and then attach the materials. I also, in this, again, if there are other instructions, follow those. I also have a preference for everything in one PDF. If I'm saving your file to a folder, it's really easy for me to save one than to have to open up 2 files and save them and all that. That's just a personal preference, and I think it makes it easy. You have everything in one document. But
That's exactly the way I would suggest doing it as well. We had a question over there.
Yeah.
You talked about writing samples. If they ask you one, what kind of a sample do you send?
So quick and fast rules, 2 to 5 pages. So I usually at least 2 pages, no more than 5, unless they ask for something else. So always the caveat is if they are asking you for something specific, do that thing. Okay. If it can be relevant to the position, that would be great. If you have, if you're applying for a journalism job, give them clips. That's what they're looking for. If they're not asking for it, that's what they want. If you're applying for some kind of communications job and you've actually done some press releases, do that. Don't write something new. Do not write something new. Write something that you've written, you've edited. If you wrote it for a class, if you're giving an excerpt, make sure it says at the top, excerpt of X paper for X class, so that they kind of know what it is, they're looking at.
And I really don't think it would hurt to kind of use a minimum of 15 minutes of an appointment with, UCIPS and their team to specifically get about 4 to 5 different writing samples ready to go that you have on hand. My research writing sample, my communications writing sample, my this, that sort of thing. 3 pages is great. Excerpted, have that ready to go. You want it to be a clean excerpt, so don't have a sentence trail off at the end.
It should be complete.
It should be complete. I mean, they're not going to spend a lot of time reading it, but what they're going to do is they want to infer, can this person write? Can they, use grammatically correct sentences? Those kinds of things. And, do they have the skills that I'm looking for? In other words, right, as Novia said about the communications or the marketing type piece. And, they want to, I think content-wise, it really doesn't matter that much. If it's able to be relevant, like let's say you were in a human rights class and you're applying for a human rights internship, that's fine. Use something like that. But otherwise, I wouldn't necessarily send a particle physics, document or something like that. Make it something that they can pretty easily get. If I'm reading a writing sample, I don't want it to be about some abstract text that I don't know a lot about because that's going to annoy me. I want it to just be like, oh, okay, this was like a basic like policy paper, whatever it is, and I can see, oh, this person can write.
It should be your best writing, an example of your best writing. A student of mine, if they're asking for, 2,000 words or something like that, like a specific amount, a student of mine is in that position. One of her professors gave her a really good tip, is write an abstract at the top. So include a little abstract, about this long, so that the people can just read that, and then they'll know if they need to read more or want to read more, or if they're good with just the abstract. Okay, those are just for longer ones. Short examples, you don't need to do that.
Yeah. And these are all the kinds of things that in UCIPS appointments you can kind of do deep dives in, based on your own particular situation and what you're going to be applying for and that kind of thing.
Yeah, students come in all the time with writing. Like, that's the big question. What do I do with that?
So speaking of that, how can you engage with UCIPS? I changed the slide.
Thank you. Dylan's pushing me along. That's good. So we have advising appointments available on CCC, as you all probably know. There are 3 of us, so come on in and see us. We try and be on different days, so you can find one. Next week, we have a couple of really cool events. One is an evening with Angela. So Angela Pace Moody works here at the Bucksbaum Institute. She's a graduate of the college. She's amazing. She's a super extrovert. But she has had this really wonderful winding career. So she's going to come and have just a conversation with students about how to be successful in careers in public and social service, how to kind of like make your way through, and how to make connections that will help you kind of learn more about your career and kind of get into the career. So she's
so
fantastic.
great because she's had corporate experience, she's had nonprofit experience, she's had university and kind of medical center experience.
International experience.
Yeah. So she is incredible. Yeah. And she's also more than willing to connect you guys with her connections, right? So she's so gracious, and she'll say, oh, you know what, you should talk to this person over at Access Health, you know, here's the name.
And then she'll actually do it, People rave about her, so she's come and see her. And then we also are having a health policy talk with the careers and health professions about the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, kind of on the ground implementation. So we'll have someone from the Illinois Marketplace there, and then somebody from Health Leads Chicago, sort of the bigger organization. We're starting a coffee talk series end of February. So the first one is going to be careers in federal government. So we'll have Jean Bracken, who's also an alum of the college, from the Department of Labor. Really, really excited about the 27th. Andy Shaw is coming. He's from the Better Government Association. He also used to be, if you don't know who he is, a reporter, political reporter. For ABC for a long time. He's won awards, bugged the hell out of lots of politicians for a long time. He's really great. And then we're doing treks, Lake County, February 14th, DC and New York, spring break. First part of spring break is DC, domestic and international policy. Second part of spring break, so the Thursday and Friday, is New York. And we'll be doing international development one day and philanthropy and development the next day. And then we have this awesome new apprenticeship program. We are thankful to alumni donor for that. If you have an unpaid internship and you just need a little bit of money, we have academic year up to $500 and summer up to $1,000. They're posted on CCC now, so you can see them. If you have questions at all, none of the UCIPS advisors are evaluating, so we are more than happy to help you prepare those. They're being evaluated by alumni, so we can also give you feedback if you don't get one. It's a grant process, so it's designed also to help you kind of get more practice at that, at writing grant applications. And then, of course, MATCAF internships and externships. The externship deadline has been extended to January 30th. And there's lots of public and social service externships. I have a bunch of copies.
You can send this out if you want.
Yeah, so we'll send it out to you. If you like hard copies, I have some hard copies here you guys can pick up on your way out. Okay?
Great.
So.
And engaging with the IOP. So a lot of times people ask me, how can I get involved with the IOP? And I start by saying, go to the Get Involved section of the IOP website. I know, it's like brain surgery. But we worked hard to actually put a lot of engagement opportunities on that part of the IOP's website. So what I would love is for you to first check that out. And then if you have any questions, there's either specific people identified that you can follow up with. You can always follow up with me, and I'll redirect you if it's not me who's running that program. But there's a lot of good opportunities up there.
I also keep up on the IOP opportunities, so if you're talking to me, you can also ask me about
Yeah, exactly. We work really closely together, and our list host you should be signed up for, and that's Mondays usually are events and things like that, but then we have a small kind of student opportunities section. Thursdays are all about opportunities for students. I saw a hand. Yeah.
So I know I'm on your listserv, and I had someone else, a staff member, don't check that I was on your listserv, but I don't ever get emails from y'all.
You might want to check your spam folder because sometimes they redirect there.
Yeah, but just shoot me an email with that. If you check your spam folder and you don't see them there, shoot me an email and we can get IT involved and just kind of figure out why that's happening. Okay, or maybe if you're using a UChicago, maybe we change it to your Gmail or something like that. Okay. So we have a couple of upcoming events. So the IOP's spring break trip to DC is going to be distinct from Novia's because we're just going to go with fourth year students. And so we actually have an information session this Monday at 6:30 at the IOP. We're talking about that trip and it's specifically geared to actually using a lot of these skills we talked about. We're going to help you have opportunities to network and to really connect with employers who have full-time jobs available. And then we're going to have you set up a whole day of your own meetings with people who you would like to directly meet with, okay? And so this is going to be over spring break, but the info session where we're going to tell you more about this trip, and again, it's for UChicago undergraduate 4th years, is this Monday at 6:30. If you can't come then, but you want to know more, just email me and we'll get you the information. Campaign opportunities event. So next Friday before, ready, you can spend a whole day with IOP and Career Advancement before the Career Advancement Interview Savvy. We're doing a campaign event, and so we're going to have this national expert named David Wasserman kick it off, and he's going to give a full picture of the 2014 elections. You guys, he is absolutely incredible. He will say, where are you from? And you'll say, I'm from Georgia, from this area. And he'll say, oh, that's District 3. And he can tell you exactly the election picture for any place in the entire country. It is magical. So he's very cool. He'll kick it off at 9:30, and then we're going to have people who have worked on campaigns, some campaign experts from both Democratic as well as Republican campaigns, talk about skills necessary to be successful there. And then we're going to actually have some local campaign opportunities there and available. So some folks who are currently running for office, and there's some primaries here that are March 18th, so we'll give you some ways to actually volunteer with those campaigns. We're not able to provide funding because it's it would be against our 501c3 status, but you know, we're able to point you in the right direction for how you could get involved in those campaigns and really get some great experience. So that's gonna be very cool. So that's in the morning. We'll give you treats and breakfast and lunch and all that good stuff. Professional skills workshops. We hope you enjoyed this. We hope it was awesome, and thank you so much, Novia. And
Thank you.
The upcoming ones, we'll make sure that we include that, and we're going to have a really great deep dive into how do you put on amazing events. This is something, events terrify me. I have no idea how to do them. So we're going to have our events folks who are really, really skilled at this give you all that information. Steve Edwards, who's like a total guru and incredible, is going to do managing the media and kind of communications, and that's his background, so that's going to be fascinating. Darren Reesberg, who comes out of the kind of policy world, is going to do a deep dive into like literally, how do you go from an idea, or I want to write this bill, to writing a bill, to passing it, to going through that process, to affecting change in policy, like that whole picture. And then we're going to have our multimedia specialists kind of do a deep dive into social media, digital media, blah-de-da, all the different things that can make you really, really effective when you go out into your internships. Finally, the only thing I'm going to mention about these is on that Get Involved site, we have student civic engagement projects. We have tons of internships, 200, that we're going to post for this coming summer, and we would love for you guys to apply for those, and all that information is up there on the website. So thank you so much.